But all news ain't always good news. So around the same time that that was announced, actually a little bit before that was announced, there was some information about OpenAI doing some discriminatory things, and Bloomberg apparently did some investigation. I haven't seen this yet, so I'm gonna hold my opinions for the end because they did some research on their own. So we're gonna see how OpenAI is carrying with jobs because nobody's perfect. As great as OpenAI is doing, if this is true, then I'm telling you, none of these places are perfect. And I'm really curious on how they're discriminating and ranking the resumes and everything because getting a job has been so difficult lately, especially for engineers and things like that. So if OpenAI is doing this, how many other companies are doing this? And I'm hoping to figure this out and come to a conclusion by the end of this. So before we dive into this, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It helps out the algorithm. And let's see.
Jobs, here's something you need to know. Companies are eager to use generative AI to filter candidates, but Bloomberg found that OpenAI's GPT discriminates against names when ranking resumes. Inspired by landmark studies, Bloomberg conducted an experiment. We came up with 800 demographically distinct names from public records and randomly assigned them to equally qualified resumes. We then prompted GPT 3.5 to rank the resumes for a financial analyst job opening. Doing this once doesn't show bias, so we repeated this thousands of times. If GPT was fair, each group would be ranked at the top equally, 1/8 of the time. Instead, names distinct to Black Americans were the least likely to be top ranked. Adverse impact is a standard used to test hiring practices for discrimination. In our tests, the difference between groups was substantial enough to surpass benchmarks for adverse impact, including each of the 4 jobs that we tested for. GPT's bias varies. For example, GPT preferred names distinct to women for an HR role, adhering to stereotypes. Why does this happen? OpenAI uses embeddings, a way to represent each word numerically, based on how they're used in natural language. Names from the same racial and ethnic groups clustered together in OpenAI's embeddings. Bloomberg's analysis shows that for GPT, a name alone is enough to lead to racialized outcomes.
That is actually insane.
At the top, equally.
I want to see this one chart. So at least it's not OpenAI deliberately going out of their way and basically doing this for their unless they use their own chatbot to skim through um, resumes. Unless they're doing that to skim through their own resumes, then it may not be on them. Maybe it's more of a less of, hey, this is more of a study on how are ChatGPT going to be ranking these names and resumes, and they did a whole study. I guess they said they tested 1,000 different cases, but how is their own software ranking people that can potentially get a job and be ranked higher for better candidates and stuff? And this is crazy because it not only separated it by race, he also says something about gender as well too. So if we look over at this chart of their test, the top ranked 32% Asian, 25% white, 25% Hispanic, 18% black as far as top ranks. Bottom ranks 22% Asian, 24% white, 25% Hispanic, and 29% black. So, as a black person, I already know for a lot of these positions where many black people come into working in the workforce and these corporate positions. There are not a lot of us. In my own job, there is not a lot of us. As far as everybody in the company goes, there's not a lot of black people in software engineering that have a bunch of jobs. It's very rare. Like for these positions, when I meet consultants and financial analysts, you really don't see a lot of black people. The next would be Hispanic people, and then you have white and Asian people who are normally in these roles. I kid you not. So what I think this is doing instead is it's looking at, I don't know, and one, I don't know how it's trained, but it's this matches up with the current industry. And I'm a believer of the best people should get the best jobs, period, and stuff. Like overall, the best people, if you're best and you can learn a certain way, your culture fit, it doesn't matter by gender and race, the best people should get the best jobs. I 100% agree with that statement and things. But if you have a skimmer like this, maybe somebody who is not as qualified, people who are not as qualified, are getting demoted down just because of their name or gender, because of how it groups everybody's names together and things. If you use this, it can definitely cause some trouble, because what it's going to do is a lot of people who are in those lower ends for position, even if they're more qualified than some people in these two zones, in the Asian or the white zones, or the blue or pink zones, they're not in there. And maybe there's even some people in the bottom rank that um deserve to be up here, that are white and Asian, that need to go on this side or the other side, but they're ranked down because they're a certain gender and whatnot. But this is this is how they ranked it. They said,
Well,
what
no.
did they say? Let's look at this. How often names distinct to black were men were ranked? 17.2% of runs. This is how they ranked everything. Mainly Asian people are all up here. Mainly the black people are all down here, and it looks like white and Hispanic are very mixed, based off all the runs. And I'm trying to find the best way to like. I think I think it might. This could be just a standard. Hey, this is trained on how stuff is currently being, and AI, the state that AI is in, it's no way of making rational decisions and things like that. Maybe there it can be fine tuned for resume specific stuff, and it just hasn't gotten that training that it needs to be able to find the right candidates, no matter name or gender. Resumes definitely should not be ranked before name or gender. They should definitely be ranked by the skill set, what's on there, and a bunch of other things. Um, and your rate, it shouldn't be ranked by race either. If you're if you're qualified, you're qualified at the end of the day. I'm a software engineer. I became qualified a certain way. I got a job. It's great. I love what I'm doing. I'm pretty good at what I'm doing and talking to certain people in certain areas and things. And I feel like the culture that I'm in is one of the best cultures that I've ever worked in. And I've only had two jobs, but it I promise you, based on like what I hear from other stuff, it is a very great culture. And I just don't think this should just be something that's being used right now as a template, because if you're just looking at all these charts, it's just not the best. And they're using GPT 3.5, so this wasn't the fully updated. This isn't 4. It's not the fully updated Chat GPT, but like, dang, best treated are just Asian people in general based off of Chat GPT for the 4 roles overall. They said they only gave us 1 role. I wonder what the other 3 roles were. How often black men were 44% often names distinct to black men were ranked first relative to best treated group. Oh, okay. So this is a chart that shows. I guess the boxes means how many were ranked in the best treated. So if I look at this, Asian women were ranked 100% as best treated in the resume thing. Asian men were probably at like 90. White men white women were ranked towards, and he could have said this is a HR position too. I think he said for women things. So I think this might be one of the HR positions that they did this test on for that role. White woman's a little bit 78%, Hispanic woman 75, Hispanic men 71, 72, yeah, 72, 71 for white men, 59 for black women, and then 44% for black men. Hey, so yeah, that's tough. That is tough. That's something that some people have to really go over and deal with, because I'm really lost on words on what to exactly say for that whole scenario. But it is crazy because one thing that I can probably say is it's probably showing the disparity of the workforce market for certain positions that are currently going on. And I think it's probably close to what that disparity is. That difference between gender and race is probably what it's like for those certain roles. I bet you they tested as well. So I find it very wild and crazy. But hey, it's just showing what the state of the job market is right now for those positions. But maybe it can be fine tuned to be better for better jobbing and finding better positions and better workers and things like